Hey folks, picture this. You stumble into a midnight garden where the roses sigh like exhausted baristas after a double espresso rush. The air smells like stale laundry mixed with honey, and every petal whispers secrets you'd swear you're why if I could never deliver, yeah. It's a little creepy, but also oddly comforting. Before we drift any further, smash that like button if you love getting lost in weirdly beautiful nightmares, and drop a comment telling us the strangest scent that's ever haunted your dreams. Now dim the lights, toss a pillow behind your back, and let's slip into the soft glow of moon-washed lilies that flicker like phone screens on a silent night. You hear the rustle of leaves that sounds suspiciously like your neighbor's gossip, and you can almost taste the cool dew on your tongue while your brain politely asks, are we still awake? It's the kind of garden that would make a 90-year-old grandma swap her knitting for a VR headset, yet feels as familiar as scrolling through endless memes at 3 a.m. So ready to wander where the flowers gossip louder than your group chat. Let's wander together, because if you're not dreaming, you're just missing the party in that picturesque village of Blossom Vale, where the petals of flowers danced like the whispers of old wives at a knitting circle. Lived an unassuming dreamer named Alara. Her days were spent among an enchanting riot of colors in her grandmother's garden, a thriving tapestry of flora that smelled like sweet nostalgia, mixed with a hint of earth and morning dew. Imagine a place where daisies dared to converse with delphiniums, and roses shared secrets with thorns, all while the wind giggled through vibrant leaves overhead. This garden was no ordinary patch of land. It was a realm bubbling with stories, hidden wonders, and oh yes, the occasional eager bumblebee ready to deliver the latest floral gossip. But for all its magic, there was a mystery here, wrapped in petals and pollen, waiting for the right dreamer to uncover it. A butterfly's wing fluttering just out of reach, teasing the senses into wonderment and longing. Now, Alara was not your garden variety horticulturist, no pun intended, but a soul with a heart that beat for adventure. With tousled hair that danced in the breeze and eyes sparkling like dew-kissed spider webs, she had a knack for coaxing blooms into song. She would spend hours listening to the flora, her imagination soaring as high as the blue jays overhead, dreaming of hidden realms and magical possibilities. Yet, beneath her soft-spoken charm lay a fearless heartbeat, yearning to peel back the layers of the ordinary and sip the nectar of the extraordinary. Oh, how she wished for the day when a mystical creature would pop up, cape fluttering, screaming, "Follow me to Narnia." Not that she was picky about her fantasy adventures. It was on one such serendipitous evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of amber and lavender, that the extraordinary began to unfurl. Alara wandered deeper into the garden, the air thick the scent of honey and the soft, captivating hum of crickets preparing for their nightly symphony. It was then that she stumbled upon a bloom, unlike any other, a flower that sparkled as though it had stolen starlight from the heavens themselves. A soft, melodic voice floated through the air, laced with an eerie familiarity that tickled her curiosity like a feather in her ear. This enchanting call was more gripping than a Netflix cliffhanger, pulling her closer to the flower that seemed to shimmer with untold secrets. As she leaned in, the flower's petals stirred with an otherworldly energy, whispering promises of odysseys beyond the mundane life of Blossom Vale. "Step into my embrace, dear dreamer," it sang, each petal quivering as if performing a delicate ballet, with a heart pounding like a drum solo at an epic concert. Alara felt an undeniable pull, a sensation akin to riding the famed teacups at Disneyland, thrilling, yet slightly nauseating. Her fingers danced over the silky petals, and just like that, reality began to blur. The garden shimmered and faded, pixelated like a retro video game glitch. She vanished into a world that stretched beyond her wildest reveries, where colors sang and flowers giggled like giddy children on a sugar high. What lay ahead was a tapestry of dreams and whispers woven from the very fabric of her imagination. Alara found herself wandering through fantastical landscapes where flowers conversed in charming dialects, embarking on dialogues more wild than the cast of a reality show. The air was scented with sweet sugar plums and pine, and every turn held the promise of delightful curiosities. Each step echoed with laughter and the allure of unexpected marvels, a place where even the grumpiest daisy wore a silly party hat. As she embraced this floral realm, the young dreamer instinctively knew this was only the beginning of her journey, a foray into the unknown, where the ordinary surrendered to the enchantment of the whimsical. As Alara crossed the threshold into the shimmering garden, a wave of fragrance washed over her, a blend of sweet nectar and earthy dew that tickled her senses. It was as if each flower had tiptoed through a bakery and borrowed the secrets of frosting. With every step, she felt the soft petals brushing against her skin, like a friendly slap from an overzealous houseplant. The vibrant colors danced in the dappled sunlight, their luminescence glowing like neon signs in a retro diner, guiding her deeper into a world where flowers weren't just for decoration. They were alive with stories of ancient enchantments and long-forgotten lore. As she wandered further, each flower began to sway in sync, whispering secrets of their own existence. There was the luminous lily that spoke of moonlit gatherings to honor the stars, and the verdant violets that giggled about mischievous pixies playing pranks on unsuspecting travelers. Alara found herself chuckling at the cheeky lilacs that swore they could outsnore the village's loudest rooster. A tapestry of history unfurled around her, each bloom a thread woven into the grand design of this magical realm, stirring in her a sense of belonging and wonder that felt almost nostalgic, as if she had strayed into a dream she never wanted to wake up from. Yet, just as the stories began to anchor her in this whimsical paradise, a sudden gust of wind barreled into the garden like an unwelcome guest at a tea party, eager to ruin the fun. The delicate blooms responded like startled dancers, their stunning hues blurring together as they tried to hold onto the earth. Alara's heart raced. It felt as if Mother Nature had flipped a switch, and the harmony she had just basked in teetered on the brink of chaos. To save the blooms and their stories, she had to step up, channeling her inner superhero, cape not required. But maybe a flower crown wouldn't hurt. Determined, she scanned the chaotic scene before her. Alara summoned her courage and dashed towards the nearest flower, a plucky daisy with petals that seemed to shimmer with defiance against the wind's onslaught. "Hold on tight, little buddy," she shouted, gripping its stem as if they were in a gripping action movie, racing against time. For a moment, she feared she was partaking in a botanical version of extreme gardening, sprinting, leaping, and dodging the raging gusts like some kind of bewildered horticultural ninja, all while the flowers cheered her on with their vibrant chatter. With every flower she protected, a flicker of dormant magic stirred beneath the surface, as though the garden itself was breathing a sigh of relief. Each visible effort rekindled no just stories, but the very essence of their histories. The garden felt like an amphitheater of legends awakening from a long slumber, their roots writhing with joy underfoot like a rock concert crowd ready to erupt. Alara, now smiling and slightly disheveled, realized she was more than a visitor in this enchanted world. She was its guardian, a quirky blend of nature's protector and accidental flower whisperer, ready to dive deeper into the mysteries yet to unfold. As Alara stepped deeper into the garden, a symphony of colors and scents wafted around her like an ethereal veil. The once vibrant blooms seemed to hang their heads under an unseen weight, draped in an air of melancholy that tugged at Alara's heartstrings. She had always found solace among flowers, but today they felt like a choir muted by a cruel conductor. It was in this rapt silence that she stumbled upon a figure of regal grace, standing like a statue carved from the dreams of poets and the hopes of children. Adorned in a crown of blossoms, the guardian of the garden gazed down at her with wise, knowing eyes, like a grandma who has seen too many holiday dinners gone wrong, yet smiled through it all, with a voice that echoed through the garden like a whispered secret. The guardian unveiled the truth that had lodged itself in the pit of Alara's stomach. The flowers, once chatterboxes of color and cheer, had fallen silent, cursed to suffer unless a true dreamer restored their spark. In your heart, young one, the guardian intoned, lies the potential to awaken them, if only you can confront your greatest demon, your fear of inadequacy. The words struck Alara like a bolt of lightning sure. She'd never been a top-tier mermaid in a sea of dolphins, but who wants to be a dolphin anyway? Yet as she marinated in those thoughts, the air around her thickened with the scent of wilting petals, and a sense of urgency began to flutter through her chest like a trapped butterfly. Dread clawed at Alara's mind as she navigated the spectral paths of her memories, each step pulling her deeper into the shadowy woods of her past, where her fears resided like trolls under a bridge. She recalled the time in 4th grade when she'd been unceremoniously dethroned from class president by a kid named Mark, who threw glitter bombs for votes. Mark's smug face had haunted her dreams for years, much like the way your socks haunt you when one of them always goes missing in the laundry. The thought of revisiting those moments made her stomach churn. Yet as she walked, she could feel the flowers responding to her agitation. Petals drooped, colors dulled, and a soft sigh echoed through the garden like the aftermath of a bad punchline. Alara inhaled deeply, drawing in the mingled scent of earth and fading blooms, a perfume both intoxicating and sorrowful. With each fleeting memory, she recalled her canvases splattered with dreams too big for her brush strokes. What if I'm not good enough? She muttered, echoing the insecurities that lingered like unwanted house guests. But in the moment that doubt reared its ugly head, she noticed a small cluster of flowers nearby shimmering faintly, their light flickering like a TV on the fritz. Maybe, just maybe, their light was tied to her courage. If she could rise above her trembling fears, the blooms could shine once more. Feeling the weight of urgency pressing against her chest like a giant marshmallow in an emotional food fight, Alara steadied herself and faced the swirling darkness of her memories. She realized that it was not the shadow of inadequacy that defined her, but the fire of resilience waiting to be ignited. Taking a deep breath, she summoned her inner dreamer. Yes, even Hermione Granger had her doubts at times. To her surprise, as she stood tall and believed in her own worth, a glorious brilliance washed over the garden, the flowers blooming full and vibrant, their laughter echoing like the jubilant notes of a long-lost symphony. In that moment, Alara understood that salvation lay not just in rekindling the light for others, but in illuminating her own path. And perhaps, just perhaps, there would be a happy ending after all, on a morning painted with the soft hues of dawn. Alara found herself trembling before the towering figure of the guardian, a mystical being wrapped in vines and illuminated by the golden glow of the rising sun. It was as if the very garden had drawn a deep breath, holding its essence captive in the air like a secret ready to be shared. With every heartbeat, the whispers of the flowers wrapped around her like a warm blanket, coaxing her to shed her insecurities like a snake molting its skin. This is it, she thought, her heart racing with anticipation, as if she had just been told that donuts were calorie-free. An exhilarating rush of possibility filled her spirit and urged her forward. The air smelled sweet, like spun sugar and adventure, buzzing with the promise of change as the guardian's eyes glimmered like dew-kissed petals, a silent invitation to step into her destiny. With a surge of determination, Alara grasped the ethereal thread of her dreams, weaving them into the very fabric of her being. The courage bubbled within her, a fizzy soda of fantastical dreams awakening from its long slumber, convincing her to embrace her true self. She felt the warmth radiate from her heart, spreading outward like ripples in a pond, awakening sleeping flowers who had long been muted under a shroud of silence. It's showtime, folks, her heart sang, and just like that, she began to release her newfound power with a whimsical flick of her wrist, as if she were casting out confetti at a parade. The air crackled with energy, each fractal of possibility dancing in rhythm with her heartbeat, setting the stage for the magic to unfold. Then, in a glorious eruption, the flowers responded to her call, their brilliant colors igniting the garden like a fireworks show on New Year's Eve. Reds, yellows, and purples exploded into existence, painting the scenery with splashes of color, brighter than a pack of highlighters forgotten on a sun-drenched windowsill. It was chaos and harmony, much like a cat sitting on a piano, clumsy yet mesmerizing. As the flowers began to sway and vibrate, shaking off the dust of their curse with jubilant abandon, the once muted petals unfurled, exuding delightful fragrances that enveloped her like a fragrant cloud of nostalgia, reminding her of sun-soaked picnics and laughter shared among friends. The scents, a heady mix of jasmine, lilac, and a hint of something refreshingly unknown, twined around her mind, coaxing out memories of laughter, love, and boundless joy. As if orchestrated by the hands of a master conductor, the garden came alive with sound, a melodious chorus that rose to the heavens like the crescendo of a symphony. Alara stood in wonder, overwhelmed by the symphony of whispers and sighs. The flowers, once silenced, now bursting forth in a cacophony of their own silly stories and timeless secrets. Each bloom shared a note, an echo of centuries filled with dreams, rivalry, and an occasional petal-pulling argument that was so ridiculous. It could have belonged in a sitcom. The crowd of flowers communicated their delight, weaving silly puns into the air, their voices dancing together like old friends reunited at a coffee shop. In that moment, Alara realized that she was not just a spectator in this vibrant garden. She had become its heart and soul, the epicenter of all that was to come. In an exquisite moment of harmony, she and the flowers intertwined their essence, a tapestry of courage and dreams woven into the very core of Blossom Vale. The landscape hummed with energy, as if even the wind had joined in the joyous celebration, flitting from flower to flower with comic enthusiasm. Alara felt like a heroine of a grand story, her worth now inscribed in the lore of the garden, her laughter mingling with the sound of rain, a sweet, gentle rhythm that promised new beginnings as the flowers harmonized in their vibrant melody. Alara beamed, her spirit soaring like a superhero discovering their powers, ready to leap into adventures that awaited in the enchanting unknown. All at once, the garden transformed, not just an expanse of color, but a living testament to dreams fulfilled. It was the heart of the world where life, laughter, and love would eternally bloom. As dawn peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Alara stood among the flowers of Blossom Vale, her heart aflame with purpose. The air buzzed with a vibrant energy, as if the very petals of the flowers were coaxing forth a symphony of delight just for her. Once silenced by a heavy curse, the garden now sang with life, whispering secrets that danced on the gentle breeze. Take that, ancient magic, she mused, thinking of the howling winds that had echoed through the vale. But now, now, everything felt like a beginning instead of an end. Here, amid the blossoms, Alara had become more than a mere girl. She was a dreamer turned protector, the guardian of whispers and fragrance, ready to embrace the mission that lay ahead. The villagers spilled into the garden like a waterfall of laughter and joy, drawn by the allure of its newfound magic. Children giggled, their tiny fingers reaching out to touch the petals, while elders weaved tales of old, their voices steady and warm like a crackling hearth on a cold winter night. Alara watched them, a grin stretching across her face as she shared stories of her adventures, of the battles won against darkness, and the friendships forged among the flowering plants that had been her allies. It was as if a festival had bloomed, and not even an ominous storm cloud could dampen their spirits. Unless, of course, that cloud had a wicked sense of humor and decided to drench them for spite. Flowers swayed, their perfume wafting through the air, mixing with the scent of baked bread and wild laughter. creating a sensory feast that would have made even the most stoic of wizards crack a smile. Alara inhaled deeply, the fragrance of lavender and honeysuckle wrapping around her like a warm hug from an old friend. The colors around her burst forth, vivid and alive, as if the very essence of joy had spilled from a painter's palette onto the earth. There was magic here, palpable and rich, a tapestry woven of whispers, dreams, and the occasional bee. The little buzzers artfully dodging hands outstretched towards them. Why chase after gold when you have flowers that shimmer brighter? She joked to herself, recalling the stories of greedy knights who'd rather pillage than appreciate the beauty blooming beneath their swords. No more would the vale thrive in shadows. Every blossom here now had a story to tell, a secret to share with those willing to listen. With an air of determination, Alara knelt down, pulling aside a few weeds that dared to intrude on her floral kingdom. It was a small task, but each plant was a friend, deserving careful attention and a bit of TLC, tender loving care. As her grandmother used to say, while cradling a wilted geranium like it was the holy grail. The texture of the soil, rich and dark, crumbled between her fingers like chocolate cake, and she chuckled at the absurdity of gardening. Here she was, a dream protector, plunging her hands into dirt, all for the sake of beauty and secrets that could easily float away with the wind. There was irony in the scene. Once a frail girl yearning for acceptance, Alara now found strength among these very blooms, her laughter mingling with the rustling leaves like a soundtrack to a film that had just begun shooting its grand finale. And so, with every drop of sweat and every joyous note sung by her villagers, Alara vowed to nurture this enchanted bond with her garden. She would cultivate the dreams buried deep within the petals and preserve the secrets that made this place an eternal haven. As the sun ascended higher in the sky, Alara felt the weight of her promise like a shimmering cloak around her shoulders, fluffy, but with an unmistakable heaviness that reminded her of the importance of her role. Together, they would bask in the garden's glory, ensuring that the whispers of the flowers would forever resonate in the hearts of all who wandered through. Just like the most enduring riffs of a classic rock song that refuses to fade from memory, with each story shared and every laugh exchanged, Blossom Vale transformed into a tapestry of hope, a reminder that sometimes the most magical of journeys begin in the simplest of gardens, in a hidden corner of the world, where the air wraps around you like a warm embrace, lay a remote village steeped in myths and whispers. Here, every cobblestone path seemed to hum with the laughter of wayward spirits, and the owls hooted secrets only the moon could decode. Among the villagers was Alara, a curious girl whose imagination often took flight, soaring far beyond the mundane routines of laundry and livestock. Armed with nothing but an insatiable thirst for adventure, and her unyielding belief in the extraordinary, she stumbled upon an ancient map tucked away in her grandmother's dusty attic. The map, frayed but enchanting, hinted at an enchanted orchard bursting with mystical trees and fruits forgotten by time. Talk about a treasure hunt worthy of Indiana Jones, minus the snakes. With each stroke of her finger over the faded ink, Alara felt destiny nudging her forward into the unknown. Excitement bubbling in her chest like a shaken soda can ready to fizz over as Alara ventured beyond the familiar fields where daisies danced under the sun like joyful children at a festival. She felt the winds conspired to tell her the orchard's secrets. The fragrance of wildflowers enveloped her, mingling with the earthy smell of loamy soil, while the sweet notes of ripe fruits lingered in the air like the scent of a freshly baked pie. Each step felt like a passage through time, wrapping her in golden strands of anticipation. However, it wasn't long before Alara encountered a sleek, emerald-eyed fox lounging atop a sun-kissed boulder, his fur glimmering in the sunlight like the treasure at the end of a pirate map. "I suppose you're here for the orchard too," the fox quipped with a smirk, dripping with charm as though he'd just stepped out of a Disney movie. Quite the unexpected twist. Little did she know, this was no ordinary fox. His name was Scylla's, and he claimed to be the guardian of the orchard with a penchant for dramatics and an impressive repertoire of puns. Scylla's, whose mischievous demeanor rivaled that of Loki from the Marvel Universe, beckoned Alara to follow him through a winding path, adorned with ancient trees that whispered secrets to each other. The ground squished beneath her boots, releasing scents of damp earth and decaying leaves, definitely not the most luxurious scent combination. But hey, this was adventure, not a spa day. Laughter and playful banter flew between them as they traversed grassy knolls and over babbling brooks, Alara's heart racing with joy and trepidation, the duality painting her cheeks with vibrant hues. Beneath the emerald canopy, sunlight spilled like golden honey, casting the surroundings in surreal, dreamlike hues. Alara could almost hear the apples rolling their eyes at the oranges in a botanical game of gossip, as she felt a pull towards something wondrous awaiting just beyond the horizon. As they walked deeper, Alara and Scylla's juggled tales of their worlds, each story a thread weaving them closer as companions. Scylla's regaled her with tales of the orchard's glory days, when its fruits held magical properties that could grant wishes, or at the very least, make your hair shinier than a shampoo commercial, which, admittedly, was a good draw for Alara. But it was the orchard's mysterious decline that captured Alara's heart, a bittersweet echo of the past that left a hint of melancholy floating through the air like the last note of a beloved song. The deeper they ventured, the more the trees leaned in, as though they were couriers of ancient wisdom, imparting tales of forgotten fruits with a sense of urgency only the trees, those centuries-old witnesses, could understand. She felt charged with purpose. It was as if a spell was cast over her, one that connected her to the orchard's desire for revival and rebirth. With each rustle and whisper, Alara could almost taste the magic in the air, a piquant blend of hope and curiosity that tingled on her tongue like the first bite of a tart cherry. The pair soon stumbled upon the orchard's entrance, marked by gnarled branches that twisted like old men discussing life's greatest mysteries. "Prepare yourself," Silas exclaimed dramatically, raising his paws like a magician unveiling a grand illusion, his eyes sparkling with mischief and excitement. As Alara stepped across the threshold, a kaleidoscope of colors burst into view, revealing trees unlike any she had ever seen, branches heavy with luminescent fruits that pulsed gently, as if to the rhythm of a heartbeat. It was a sight that would make even the most stoic movie critic drop their popcorn in awe. And in that moment, she knew this journey was only just beginning, teetering on the edge of a wonderful, magical abyss. Alara and Silas strolled deeper into the enchanted orchard, the air thick with the scent of ripe fruit and something reminiscent of childhood summers was that cotton candy in the breeze. Towering trees of emerald and gold loomed above them, their trunks twisted and gnarled like ancient storytellers waiting for the right ears to unlock their secrets. With every step, the ground crackled softly beneath their feet, almost as if the orchard itself whispered forgotten tales. Suddenly, a tree, its bark shimmering like starlit night, spoke in a voice deep and rumbling, startling Silas, who stumbled back as if he'd seen a velociraptor at a petting zoo. "Mind your intentions, wanderers. Here, every fruit bears the weight of choice." It boomed, leaving Alara wide-eyed, half expecting it to suggest a good salad recipe next. Alara, curiosity bubbling like a pot on the stove, approached a nearby tree adorned with glowing, translucent fruits. They pulsed with a rhythm all their own, casting an enchanting light that danced on her skin like fairy lights at a holiday party. "Pick one," Silas urged, his eyes twinkling with mischief. But Alara hesitated, recalling the tree's cryptic warning. To heal or harm, what a perilous culinary decision. Like some cosmic game of fruit ninja, she felt the weighty decisions resting like a ripe pumpkin on her conscience. She plucked a gleaming fruit, and as she did, a shiver ran through her, entwining her fate with the orchard's unpredictable magic, just as Alara was about to take a bite, because who could resist glowing fruit, really? An icy wind swept through the orchard, pricking at her skin like an uninvited chill at an indoor wedding. A cloaked figure emerged from the shadows, her presence like a dark cloud over the sun. Morwenna, the malevolent sorceress of local bedtime stories that had crept into Alara's childhood nightmares, glared at them with eyes as sharp as a pair of barber's scissors. Step away from those fruits. They are not for the likes of you. She sneered, her voice dripping with malice, each word landing like a heavy stone dropped into a tranquil pond. The air thickened with tension. It felt like the climax of a bad horror movie, where the characters inexplicably stepped toward danger instead of away. As the confrontation escalated, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was as much about the orchard's mysteries as it was about her growing confidence. Memories of orchards past flooded back, days spent raiding trees with her friends, filling their pockets with stolen fruit like tiny, fruity treasures. But this was no ordinary orchard. This echoed with ancient stories of love, betrayal, and dark magic. Morwenna's connection to the land was as twisted as a pretzel at snack time, steeped in shadows and regret, a haunting melody that warned of dangers long forgotten. Alara felt an electric pulse in her fingertips, an understanding dawning. With each bite of the enchanted fruit, they were the architects of their destiny, wielding the power to either heal the orchard or doom it to darkness. With Scylla's by her side, Alara summoned her courage, making a choice that would either send them to glory or doom them to dramatic monologues about lost adventures in the underworld. Take one step closer, and I will unleash the magic of this orchard upon you, Morwenna, she declared, her voice quaking yet fiercely resolute. The orchard held its breath, the trees quivering like popcorn in a hot pan, while glowing fruits shimmered in anticipation. Morwenna's eyes widened with a mix of disbelief and fury, like the last slice of pizza at a crowded party, sparking the fierce competitive spirit within. As they faced off amidst the enchanted grove, Alara sensed that their destinies were entwined with the very essence of the orchard, teetering on the edge of chaos and wonder, a thrilling narrative ready to unfold. As the sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows across the enchanted orchard, Alara and Scylla's found themselves sprinting like characters in a frantic video game. The rustling leaves overhead whispered secrets of betrayal as Morwenna's minions thudded relentlessly behind them, their footsteps sounding like the booming drums of doom. Alara's heart raced, synchronizing with the rhythm of danger. A wild symphony of adrenaline pulsed through her veins. Just when Scylla's with his wild, curly hair and a grin that could charm a squirrel, thought he'd run out of clever ideas. The air shimmered, and a wise old tree emerged, its bark etched with stories older than time itself. Head to the grove of whispers. It creaked, its branches swaying as if mocking the soldiers of darkness. They didn't need to be told twice. Alara pushed forward, the scent of ripe, mystical fruits tickling her senses, mingling with the earthy aroma of her surroundings. It felt alive, just like she was starting to feel. With each step deeper into the orchard, the shadows thickened, wrapping around them like a cold blanket on a stormy night. But oh, what light-hearted company awaited them. Mischievous fairies danced on the edges of their vision, flitting about like gossamer-winged dreams, giggling as they orchestrated small pranks on the looming darkness. One fairy, with a shock of violet hair and a grin that could rival the Cheshire Cat, tossed pixie dust into the air, creating a prism of colors that glinted defiantly against the descending gloom. Just a sprinkle of this will keep them at bay, she chirped, making Scylla's raise an eyebrow. Unless they have a thing for butterflies and glitter, which I bet Morwenna does. Alara chuckled, the noise bubbling from her chest, heart warming amidst the chaos. A small beacon of defiance in the encroaching night. But the fairies weren't the only unexpected allies awaiting them in this ethereal maze. Roots tugged beneath their feet, whispering tales of ancient battles and forgotten fruits, while a cool breeze carried the sweet, yet slightly musty smell of overripe cider apples. Alara paused, feeling the beating pulse of the orchard, and leaned against a gnarled trunk, the moss cool against her palm, absorbing the tales it had to offer. Suddenly, a spark ignited within her. She felt a surge of magic drawn from the old tree around her. This isn't just a chase, she thought. It's a revelation. She closed her eyes, taking in not just the scent of fruit, but the essence of it, feeling the magic hum beneath the surface of her skin, unfurling her hidden strength, like a tightly coiled spring ready to launch into action. However, the moment of triumph was as fleeting as a wisp of smoke. An ominous rumble vibrated through the orchard as Morwenna's power crackled baby style, escalating like a poorly written sequel no one wanted. She felt it, creeping through the air like sour milk, a palpable menace that curled her stomach. The fruits, once whimsical shades of radiant color, began to wither. Plump apples shriveled and lost their luster. Grapes turned to shriveled raisins, and the air thickened with decay. This is no time for a pity party, Alara shouted to Scylla's, eyes darting, as the very ground beneath them began to quiver. The fairies increased their mischief, tossing handfuls of glitter to distract the minions, who barked orders like frustrated cats, eyes darting wildly, while Alara steeled herself, clenching her fists, determined not to let her spirit wither like the orchard itself. With Monty Python-worthy resolve, Alara faced the encroaching shadow, that pesky sorceress who seemed to now have an evil laugh to match her motive. "You'll not claim this magic," Alara vowed, her voice rising like a battle cry. The orchard pulsed around her, the whispers of allies weaving strength into her resolve, filling her with wild energy and a sprinkle of insanity, just the right concoction. As the first minion lunged, she leapt forward, a spark igniting in the air like a 4th of July firework. "Take that, you fancy cosplay reject," she exclaimed, channeling the wild magic of the orchard through her fingertips. With each step deeper into the flickering shadows, it was clear this was not just a chase, but a whimsical dance of destiny woven in the heart of the enchanted orchard. As Alara ventured deeper into the enchanted orchard, the air thickened with anticipation, each step sending a shiver down her spine. The trees loomed overhead like ancient guardians, their gnarled branches twisting and intertwining, as if whispering secrets of old. The vibrant fruits that once dangled seductively now appeared like sinister gems, glistening with a malevolent sheen under the dappled sunlight. In the distance, the wicked laughter of Morwenna echoed, each cackle striking like a bell, tolling the inevitable gloom. Alara felt the weight of her fear pressing against her chest. It was heavy and rough, like a boulder lodged in her throat, threatening to choke her resolve before the confrontation even began. But she wasn't alone. Silas stood resolute at her side, his presence a steady beacon amidst the encroaching shadows, reminding her of what they fought to save. The moment she laid eyes on Morwenna, the witch's figure seemed an amalgamation of every dark fantasy and nightmarish tale that had ever been spun around a campfire, cloaked in swirling mists that smelled faintly of rotting fruit and betrayal. Morwenna basked in the malignant glow of the fruits she had ensnared, their colors screaming of splendor, yet tinged with decay. "You think you can take back what's mine," she crooned, her voice liquid and slippery, like trying to wrestle with an octopus made of malice. In that instant, the gravity of Alara's quest crystallized. She was not just fighting for magic, but for the very essence of the orchard she had come to love. Each fruit held dreams, hopes, and the laughter of spirits, and Alara had no intention of letting Morwenna squeeze the life from them like a villain in a Saturday morning cartoon. With a deep breath, she summoned every flicker of courage she possessed, preparing for the storm that was about to break. With a roar that would put a lion to shame, Alara charged ahead, her heart pounding like a drum at a medieval festival, resounding with every footfall on the soft, lush carpet of moss. The spirits of the orchard swirled around her, a kaleidoscope of light and essence, galvanizing her spirit as they whispered words of encouragement and ancient chants that tinged the air with energy. It was like being enveloped in a warm embrace of nostalgia and hope, the sort of feeling you get when you realize your favorite song is playing on the radio. Yet, in this moment, the stakes were life or death. As she neared Morwenna, Alara's hand clasped around the stem of a radiant golden plum, one of the last untouched fruits, almost vibrating with latent power. The fruit radiated warmth, the kind you might feel sunbathing on a summer's day. And suddenly, her fears shifted. They transformed, taking on a new shape, familiar yet monstrous, like encountering a friendly-ish old pet that had grown fangs. Morwenna's eyes widened as she sensed Alara's resolve, a flicker of something akin to fear playing across her wicked features. With an incantation as sharp as a razor blade, the witch sent a torrent of shadowy tendrils snaking toward them, weaving through the air like a sinister ballet. Silas leaped to defend Alara, his blade slicing through the darkness like a hot knife through butter, sending wisps of black smoke dissipating harmlessly into the air. The battle was a chaotic symphony of clashing wills and the shrieks of the vine-wrapped spirits who pleaded for their freedom, their cries tinged with desperation that tugged on Alara's heartstrings. With each strike, she felt her connection to the orchard grow stronger, the fruits bursting with luminescence, fueling her strength and awakening the magic deep within her. It was a dance of light and shadow, and with every beat, she edged closer to understanding her true power, a power not just bound to the orchard, but the essence of who she truly was. In a final surge of determination, Alara crushed the golden plum in her palm, its juices spilling forth like the dawn, bursting through the darkness, vibrant, potent, and undeniably alive. The orchard responded to her call, eruptions of color cascading from the trees, enveloping Morwenna in an iridescent cocoon that pulsed with this new energy. It was as if the very soul of the orchard was rebelling against its captor, a divine uprising that could only be described as pure magic incarnate. Morwenna's laughter faltered, panic slicing through her bravado like a chainsaw through a wooden fence. With a mighty roar, the darkness unraveled and fled, leaving behind a cacophony of joyous whispers, filling Alara with a euphoric sense of belonging. She had confronted her fears and emerged victorious, not just reclaimed the magic, but solidified her journey into becoming the guardian of this enchanted realm she now called home. The dawn broke over the enchanted orchard like a shy maiden peeking from behind a curtain, its light casting golden rays on the dewy grass. Alara and Silas stood amongst the gnarled branches, remnants of their fierce battle with Morwenna still lingering in the air like the smell of burnt toast after a kitchen mishap. With her defeat, the dark clouds lifted, revealing the vibrant hues of the orchard's magical landscape. The reds of the ruby grapes practically danced atop their vines, while the luminescent yellows of starfruits twinkled like the night sky. For the first time in ages, peace hummed through the leaves, invigorating both the flora and the weary hearts of the orchard's guardians. They could almost hear the revitalizing laughter of trees warming up for a good story, each telling tales of ancient dances beneath the moonlight, where fruit would sway in rhythms long lost to time. Once again, the orchard thrived, and with it began the reparative work of nature, wrapping the land in a vibrant tapestry of life and color. Far removed from the shadow of Malisville's former ruler, with joy bubbling like a fizzy drink on a hot summer day, Alara brought her hands together, announcing, "This calls for a celebration." Scylla's raised an eyebrow, half smirking, half concerned that exuberance might attract a wayward rogue or two. One could never trust the wandering witches or ill-mannered sprites. After all, they picked the ripest enchanted fruits to create a feast fit for the kingdom, which soon transformed into a veritable banquet table, overflowing with dazzling colors that shimmered like disco balls at a 70s party. There were pies steaming with fragrant cinnamon and crisp apples that crunched merrily upon each bite. The laughter danced through the orchard, drawing creatures from the corners of the woods. A family of squirrels, twitchy and curious, peeked out from behind a vibrant plum tree, offering support like a startled audience at a surprise flash mob. Every bite taken not only filled their bellies, but also revived the stories of old, weaving threads of friendship tighter than Grandma's hug after a particularly bad day. As the day rolled on, Alara made a life-changing decision, one that could rival even the greatest plot twists of fables past. She chose to remain as the orchard's guardian. Some may say it was a lofty role. Others might claim she was simply too fond of her new leafy companions to roam beyond the orchard's embrace. In truth, as Alara felt the sun-warmed earth beneath her feet, a feeling of connection enveloped her like her favorite worn-out sweater. This place, with its hidden stories and charming quirks, felt as ancient and vital as the air itself, and she had no intention of leaving it just to chase fleeting adventures elsewhere. Scylla's, ever the mischief maker, teased her about her newfound orchard mom status, promising to send her a postcard from the edge of the woods with tales of mischief. He'd surely get caught up in a promise that sparked laughter within the summer breeze. With Alara at the helm, the orchard continued to bloom and flourish, and the legends of its enchanted wonders spread far and wide, like the magnificent wildfire that nearly ruined the local brewery's pumpkin ale party a few summers back. Travelers ventured from distant lands, lured by tales of fruits that granted wisdom or groves that whispered secrets under the winter moon. Dressed in hand-me-down cloaks adorned with patches of memories, they explored the vibrant orchards, beaming like the first bulb of spring against the thawing ground. Occasionally, they'd stumble into Alara, plucking thoughts from her like ripe pears from the trees. Or maybe they would trip over a whimsical root, turning the scene into a slapstick comedy that would make Hollywood proud, regardless of their antics. Each visit enriched the orchard's lore, urging it to grow and adapt, not unlike an ancient tree learning to bend, but never breaking. In this wondrous owl-eyed paradise, Alara found solace, a warm seat at the communal fire that still told of fire breaths and battles fought, where laughter echoed like a sweet symphony beneath the canopy. She nurtured the bond she formed with Scyllas, the squirrels, and the trees that shared her joys and sorrows alike, her heart full, like an overstuffed piñata, waiting for the perfect moment to burst. The air was laced with the aroma of ripe grudges, sweet fruits, and whispered laughter, promising that the orchard was not merely a place of flora, but a tapestry of life, suddenly vibrant again after years of neglect. With every passing day, the orchard embraced its magical destiny, infusing every moment with the insight that true magic lives not just in enchanted fruits, but in the connections forged through shared adventures. And as Alara gazed at the sun vanishing over the horizon, she couldn't help but smile, knowing that, like the most intricate of tales, her own story was only just beginning. In the heart of a small village, where the cobblestone streets danced with the chatter of daily life, there lay an ancient forest, draped in shadows and mystery, like an old, tattered quilt left to mildew. It was here that Lyra, a girl with more curiosity than sense, kind of like a cat in a laser pointer contest, found solace among the whispering trees. These titanic behemoths, with gnarled roots snaking deep into the earth, seemed to hold secrets as old as time itself, shushing the wind with their rustling leaves. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, was infused with the magic of long-forgotten tales, waiting impatiently for an ear to listen. As Lyra's eyes sparkled like sunlight on water, she was drawn to the enigmatic figure of an old herbalist who wore the woods like a cloak, a sage, a keeper of stories that fluttered around her like autumn leaves caught in a breeze. The herbalist's voice was a melody, rich and haunting, as she recounted a past woven with enchantment and peril. Once, my dear, she began, a mischievous twinkle glinting in her eyes, the forest was a playground for mystical beings, noble sylphs, giggling dryads, and even a few pesky pixies with a penchant for prank calling the moon. Lyra's imagination ran wild, conjuring images of these whimsical creatures and the great shenanigans they must have orchestrated beneath the leafy canopies. But then, with a gravity that made the very trees shiver, the herbalist's tale shifted to a time when darkness crept into their verdant paradise, an age when an age-old curse was cast deep into the roots of the whispering trees, gnawing silently at their magic. As the herbalist spoke, Lyra could almost hear the crackling energy of the past reverberating through the air, echoing like a ghostly radio station stuck between frequencies, fueled by a mixture of trepidation and adrenaline. Lyra felt the stirrings of adventure awaken within her a peculiar feeling, much like discovering that the last slice of pizza was indeed, miraculously, a pepperoni. With each passing day, visions of the secret curse consumed her thoughts, and she could no longer resist the siren call of the forest. Armed with her trusty notebook and a pocket full of wildflower seeds, because who wouldn't want to grow a flower on the other side of an ancient curse? She ventured deeper into the foliage. The air thickened, and the delightful aroma of damp fir and rotten wood morphed into something more elusive, almost as if the breeze exhaled words long locked away. Lyra could feel a pulse beneath her feet, a heartbeat synchronized with her own, calling her to uncover the truth hidden in the whispers. As she plunged deeper into the enchanted woods, Lyra was greeted by the song of the trees, each creak and rustle telling tales of lost love, forgotten battles, and the kind of awkward family reunions that could make even a sitcom cringe. Birds flitted through the branches, their songs a delightful cacophony, punctuated by the occasional croak of a frog that sounded suspiciously like it had just binge-watched a drama marathon. But as the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor, an eerie sensation flickered at the edge of her senses. The trees were watching. Would they join her adventure or scoff at her foolish ambition? Perhaps they were like the high school bullies of the forest, mocking her quest for answers while spinning wildly on their trunks. Lyra grinned, welcoming the challenge as she felt the magic swell around her, unearthing the thrill of being on the brink of discovery. With determination blazing in her heart like a flaming marshmallow on a campfire stick, Lyra pledged to unlock the mysteries tightly bound in the roots of the whispering trees. She pictured herself as an explorer, much like Indiana Jones, only with fewer snakes and more squirrels, and hopefully no ancient traps that would make her dance like a fool. As she meticulously sketched the peculiar symbols etched into the bark, she wondered what kind of troubles awaited an ancient spirit, a riddle wrapped in a joke, or perhaps a showdown with the local wildlife. whatever it was, she was ready to confront the enchantments, unravel the stories, and maybe even light up her little village with tales that would render childhood bedtime stories obsolete. The air sparkled with potential, and Lyra could feel her feet moving towards the unknown, each step a whisper against the secrets of the forest, and she was determined to listen closely. In the back corner of the herbalist's cozy yet cluttered cottage, amid jars of dried herbs and snatches of forgotten lore, Lyra's fingers brushed against something decidedly more intriguing than a dusty spice rack, a worn map, yellowed at the edges and marked with ink that danced like the shadows in the flickering candlelight, lay half buried under a stack of parchment. The forest depicted on it was alive, a sprawling emerald tapestry with secret paths snaking like mischievous vines through its depths. The scent of damp earth filled her nostrils as she inhaled deeply, as if the very air vibrated with ancient secrets waiting to be unearthed. I should probably get an adventuring party together, she muttered to herself, sensing the absurdity of embarking on a quest armed only with a map and an insatiable curiosity, the kind that usually leads to epic tales or dinner party disasters. With the map clasped tightly in her hands, Lyra stepped outside, the sun filtering through the emerald canopy above, casting playful patterns on the ground. Each crack of twigs and rustle of leaves transformed into a symphony of whispers, a chorus that spoke of age-old wisdom and untold stories. The air was thick with the earthy aroma of moss and decaying leaves, a bouquet of scents that screamed, "Welcome to the wild." Yet, this welcoming was laced with an undercurrent of foreboding. Something deep within the forest seemed to beckon her further, promising revelations. Or perhaps a game of hide and seek with a horde of unwelcoming spirits. Did I just step into a Guillermo del Toro movie? She chuckled nervously, treading deeper into the heart of the woodland realm. As she wandered, the forest closed in around her, transforming the familiar sounds of chirping birds into a haunting melody of sighs and murmurs. A chill crept up her spine, and the hair on her arms stood at attention as she passed ancient trees that had weathered centuries, their gnarled branches bending low like the weight of their burdens. Crystalline dewdrops clung to their leaves, shimmering in the dappled sunlight like tiny spirits watching her every move. But rather than living creatures, Lyra soon sensed the restless spirits inhabiting the shadows, remnants of those who had trodden these very paths long before her. Great, just what I need, a ghostly welcome committee, she quipped aloud, though her heart raced, each beat interlacing with the haunting whispers around her. Then something shifted in the air, a sudden stillness that suffocated the forest's song. Emerging from the thick underbrush, a spectre materialized, a guardian draped in translucent veils that swirled like mist around its form. The spirit's eyes glimmered with sorrow and fierce protection, an echo of the ancient wisdom that matched Lyra's own burgeoning anxiety. A voice, laden with the weight of histories untold, resonated in the quietude. You tread on sacred ground, child of the forest's heart. Lyra felt the pull of her family's history wrapping around her like tendrils of ivy. A truth waited for her beyond fear, entwined with the whispers of the trees. Dad never mentioned anything about keeping in touch with the undead, she replied, her voice a mix of sarcasm and genuine trepidation. As the importance of this meeting crashed over her, the guardian began revealing fragments of her lineage, tales of long-lost ancestors who had danced between the trees, offering gratitude and promises to the forest that sustained them. Each story unraveled within her like the delicate threads of a spider's web spun in the morning light. Delicate yet strong, binding her fate to this mossy haven. Feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon her shoulders, Lyra realized this was more than a mere exploration. It was an awakening, a call to protect the whispers that had guided generations before her. Casting one last glance at the map, she felt the hum of the ancient woods promising her adventure, while simultaneously tugging at her heartstrings. Guess it's time to answer the call of the wild, she declared, her spirit ignited as she prepared to dive deeper into the forest's embrace, ready to uphold a legacy hidden beneath the canopy of whispers. Lyra's heart raced as nightmarish shapes flitted between the trees. The beasts of legends once forgotten had come to reclaim their territory. With eyes glowing like embers and fang-filled grins wider than a dentist's nightmare, these creatures moved to the rhythm of the forest's heart, as if they were the very embodiment of its anguish. Why couldn't I just take up knitting instead? She thought, humor tickling her nerves, making her doubt her bravado. But the rasping challenge of a serpent's hiss pierced through her distracting musings, snapping her back to reality. With every breath fogging in the cold air, she tightened her grip on her staff, a clumsy weapon fashioned from a gnarled branch. Flashes of ferocity danced in her mind. Somehow, she had to match the ancient spirit's wild rhythm, or risk getting turned into an epic campfire tale of stupidity and terror. Confrontation greeted her at each turn, forcing Lyra to embrace her resolve or get pulled into the spiral of creeping despair circling around her heart. Facing a particularly fearsome beast, its fur bristled and teeth dripping with shadow's remnants, she summoned a courage that tasted like copper and regret. But just as fear gripped her throat, visions filled with shimmering hope emerged from the whispers of the forest, wrapping around her like a soothing embrace. From the depths of the enchanted darkness sprouted glimpses of earlier laughter, faces framed in memories long lost. Here lay the true magic, a flickering beacon showing that the forest, though twisted and tainted, had birthed a friendship from despair. How much sweeter its redemption seemed now, if one were brave enough to venture into the heart of this chaos. That is, the gentle rustling of leaves began to rise in intensity, caught between a soft lullaby and a raging storm. With every beat of her heart resonating in tandem with the unrest of the forest, Lyra felt an unfamiliar power course through her veins, awakening fragments of strength buried deep under layers of self-doubt. If these ancient woods evolved from bonds of pure intentions, surely she too could contribute to that vital harmony despite her misgivings. It's not a heroic quest without a little drama, she chuckled, as if the forest might actually snicker back at her resolve. Each day spent in the verdant embrace sharpened her instincts. She was beginning to unearth the true reason behind this dreadful curse. Maybe, just maybe, all it needed was a pure heart, not unlike a superhero's, but without the spandex and cape. Yet doubts lurked like mischievous sprites, batting at her internal compass and asking piercing questions that echoed through the quietude. Could she be the anomaly that restored balance, or were her dreams as flimsy as dandelion fluff blown on the wind? The very essence of the forest seemed to dim, the whispered promises dwindling as Lyra grappled with the weight of her heart's own turmoil. And just when she thought her journey would unfold in an epic showdown complete with triumphant music, it felt more like being an extra in the horror flick, darting left and right, the chase a battle against her own insecurities. Woven between fear and hope, she pressed forward, knowing this winding path through the heart of the forest was hers to navigate, no matter how twisted it might become. Deep within the ancient forest, where the trees stand like weathered giants draped in moss and mystery, Lyra felt the thrum of 1,000 whispered secrets vibrating through the air. It was as if the very ground beneath her feet pulsed with the heartbeats of those long forgotten. She had journeyed through twisted roots and shadowy thickets, her heart resolute yet heavy, leading her to this fateful confrontation. There, amidst a clearing illuminated by shafts of golden light, stood the source of the curse, a forgotten spirit, its form swirling like smoke, but with eyes aglow, simmering with the resentment of ages. Great, just what I needed, another ghost out for blood, she quipped to herself, trying to mask her trepidation with humor as she braced for the showdown. The air crackled as tension built, each breath thick with the weight of unspoken grudges. The spirit loomed larger, its wails intertwining with the rustling leaves, echoing like a mournful choir. Lyra could almost taste the bitterness wafting off it, a tang that mingled with the scent of damp earth and the sweetness of decaying wood. Clenching her fists, she drew upon her newfound strength, ignited by the countless voices of the forest, their wisdom and resilience wrapped around her like protective vines. "It's showtime, folks," she declared, her resolve hardening like the bark of the oldest oak nearby, as she prepared to battle not just a wraith, but the darkness simmering within her own heart as well. With a flash of determination, Lyra surged forward, her spirit crackling with light as she clashed against the swirling shadows of the spirit. Their struggle was an epic dance of light and darkness, her vibrant energy intertwining with the dark, murky tendrils of its resentment, each strike resounding like thunder through the forest. Energy pulsed around her, and with each movement she could hear the encouragement of the trees, their branches swaying in rhythm to her fight. Breathless, she felt both exhilarated and terrified, as if she were trapped in a movie where the hero had to wrestle not just the villain, but also the clock. The forest's fate hung in the balance, and so did her own potential for compassion or revenge. In that moment, Lyra realized that this battle was as much about freeing the spirit as it was about liberating herself from the chains of anger that had once defined her. Yet, as the clash raged on, a dizzying irony settled in Lyra. The self-proclaimed protector of the forest found herself battling a being that had been wronged, a soul twisted by abandonment and sorrow. She caught a glimpse of the spirit's past, its once luminous form now wreathed in darkness, and for a fleeting heartbeat, pity surged in her chest. "You're not the only one who's been hurt, you know," she shouted, her voice full of a strength she didn't know she possessed. In that instant, she began to see the struggle not as a monstrous fight, but as a poignant story of loss played out beneath the canopy of towering trees. "What if we could rewrite your ending?" she offered, a surprising thought slipping from her lips, softening the sharp edge of their battle. As the spirit hesitated, caught between centuries of fury and the flickering flame of Lyra's compassion, the atmosphere began to shift. Thick clouds scattered, allowing rays of sunshine to bathe the clearing in warm light. Lyra, emboldened, reached out, the air around her infused with the vibrant smells of life, the fragrant wildflowers blooming defiantly at the forest's base. Voices of the forest grew louder, singing a harmonious symphony that drowned out the howling winds of resentment. It was a call for healing. The ultimate confrontation was not fought with blades or banter, but with a bridge of understanding forged in the very heart of darkness. Lyra extended her hand, connecting two worlds, showing that sometimes the bravest thing one can do is bend not the knee in defeat, but to offer a chance for forgiveness to those trapped beneath their own shrouds of despair. As dawn cracked its golden knuckles above the ancient woods, Lyra stood amidst the towering sentinels of nature, breathing in the sweet, earthy scent of renewal. This was no ordinary morning. The crisp air was alive with the hum of jubilant critters celebrating a second chance. Where once the trees whispered in fear, their branches now danced to a melody of hope. Lyra could almost hear them argue over whose leaves were the shiniest. A forest gossip circle, fueled by the recent restoration. With the gentle breeze tousling her hair, she felt as if the woods had embraced her, not just as their protector, but as a pal in their ongoing saga, a tale woven through time itself, complete with high stakes and an occasional squirrel showdown. Back in the village, festivities erupted like popcorn at the top of a hot stove. Bursting with laughter, villagers donned leafy crowns and paraded under the sun, a motley crew of forest enthusiasts who were now more than just neighbors. They were allies. The aroma of freshly baked bread and roasted chestnuts wafted through the air, mingling harmoniously with the rich, mossy smells from the forest beyond. Children scampered about, trying to capture the elusive shadows of the trees that had once shied away from their laughter. All around, the joyous sound of celebration bounced among the trees like an overzealous pinball, filling Lyra's heart with warmth, like a freshly brewed cup of cocoa on a winter's night. As the villagers busily crafted colorful banners adorned with leaves and wildflowers, Lyra found a moment of quiet beneath an enormous oak that had sheltered generations before her. She could almost hear the tree's tales of resilience, the storms it had weathered, the creatures it had cradled within its arms. In a world where the future felt often bleak, the aged bark seemed to thrum with wisdom, saying, "You think your problems are tough. Try standing here for 1,000 years." The irony of how something so rooted could encapsulate the very essence of change wasn't lost on her. Every tree, every blade of grass had a story, and it was her task to share these hidden narratives with her fellow villagers, whose eyes shone with curiosity. Amidst the clamor, the elder of the village, a spirited woman with laughter lines etched deep from years of joy and mischief, called for attention. As her voice rippled like a creek through the crowd, she spoke of the fragile bond that had blossomed after the darkness had passed. Folks, today we celebrate not just our salvation, but the vibrant life swirling around us, the forest and village, intertwined like the perfect braid of hair, resilient and beautiful. Small hands reached upward, hoping to grasp bits of wisdom like eagles snatching up wayward mice. With her jubilant spirit stirring the hearts of many, Lyra felt the weight of her purpose grow lighter, as if a chain had snapped, freeing her to dance among the promises of tomorrow. With the sun dipping low, casting an enchanting palette of oranges and purples across the horizon. Lyra turned her gaze back to the woods, that living tapestry now alive with laughter and song. The moment felt cinematic, reminiscent of a dramatic rolling credit scene where the small screen heroes finally get their moment in the limelight. But she wasn't done, not by a long shot. The tales she had vowed to protect needed guardianship, lessons to pass down like an heirloom quilt made from the patches of history. And so Lyra stepped forth into the forest, not just to wander, but to ensure that these ancient whispers didn't fade into echoes, but sang sweetly for generations yet to come. In the serene village of Mythos, where the sun stretched over golden sands like a child reaching for crayons, lived Alara, the wise elder with hair as silver as the moonlit waves. She held stories in her heart, woven into the very fabric of the ocean's salty breeze, each tale a gem awaiting rediscovery. With laughter that danced like gulls above the surf and eyes that sparkled with unspoken wisdom, she captivated the villagers with her fables of mermaids, storms, and kisses from long-lost sailors. But little did they know, a true adventure awaited them just beyond the horizon, masked by the whims of the seemingly placid sea. Each morning, they would gather under the shade of swaying palms, their buzzing conversations puncturing the tranquil air. But none could sense the impending magic lurking beneath the waves. One particularly bright day, as the sun spun gold across the azure waters, a tempest blew in unexpectedly, sending a sharp wind howling through the village, like a cranky cat refusing to be let out. When the storm finally receded, the village found its sandy shores littered with strange treasures. But one shell in particular caught Alara's keen eye. Sparkling obscenely like it, had just come from a discount jewelry sale in Atlantis. The seashell shimmered with an eerie light, and as she picked it up, it seemed to vibrate softly, whispering secrets that tickled her ears like mischief-laden pixies. The villagers gathered, curiosity ignited like a campfire under the stars, drawn to the enchanting artifact that seemed to breathe the history of the waves themselves. Oh boy, they thought, what trouble might this little beauty lead to? With the villagers' eyes wide as saucers and hearts racing like untrained marathon runners, Alara stood atop a driftwood pedestal, ready to interpret the shell's murmurs. As she held it close, the whispers grew clearer, reminiscent of the playful banter between a mischievous dolphin and an unsuspecting sea turtle. Hearken, good folk of Mythos, she proclaimed, her voice blending with the gentle lapping of the waves, for this shell speaks of lost treasures and wisdom of the ocean. Laughter rippled through the crowd as someone yelled, "Are we talking about treasures like unicorns and mermaid hair, or actual gold?" Alara chuckled, her face crinkling like ancient parchment. "Just wait and see, my skeptical friend," as the shell whispered ancient naval secrets, tales of long-lost ships and fabled treasures began to unfold lifelike before the villagers' eager minds. Suddenly, they found themselves enraptured, transported back to a vibrant age where pirates roamed the seas, and heroics were commonplace as free samples at a summer fair. The insistent whisper of the shell painted vivid pictures of formidable captains with eye patches and parrot companions, spinning yarns of sea monsters that could swallow ships whole. The scent of salt mingled with the sweetness of adventure, filling their lungs as laughter and excitement animated the once quiet beach. But there was an ironic twist lurking in the depths of the echoes. It appeared that these legends came with a warning, a price to pay for such knowledge, lurking like a shark under calm waters. Alara's heart raced as she conjured the final tale whispered by the shell, a reminder of the ocean's capricious nature, a duality of beauty and peril. Much like that time, she tried banana pudding ice cream. She cautioned her friends, "The ocean is a giver of riches, but it demands respect. Ask not only for the glimmer of treasure, but be prepared for what shadows lurk beneath the surface." As the villagers soaked in the stories, each ripple seemed to carry a mix of hope and trepidation, a reminder that every lapping wave contained a choice, an eternal dance between light and dark. The storm had brought them more than just a shell. It offered a glimpse into their own hearts, where courage and adventure wrestled with fear and doubt. And as they listened, the once secluded village of Mythos erupted with gleeful chatter, forever changed by the whimsical wonders hidden just beyond the whispering waves. Picture this. The sun hangs low in the azure sky, casting golden rays over the tranquil beach as waves gently kiss the shore. Here, in this small village, a peculiar shell washed ashore like a forgotten relic from some long-lost world. Villagers gathered around, the salty breeze ruffling their tattered clothes, eyes alight with wonder. As they pressed ears to the shell's surface, whispers emerged, laced with the voices of their ancestors. Oh, the tales it spun were rich and vibrant, from heroic deeds to romantic escapades, like a beachside version of Game of Thrones, but with less backstabbing and more seashells. Yet, as the days rolled by, a dark cloud began to loom over this newfound treasure. Enter Cyrus, the merchant with a heart as cold as a sea cucumbers embrace. While the villagers basked in their family stories, he grew more fixated on the shell, convinced it held the secret to untold riches. With each whispered account of past glories, the air crackled with jealousy and greed, much like a soap opera plot twist, where the overly ambitious cousin aims for the family fortune. The village's laughter threatened to turn sour as Cyrus plodded in the shadows, rubbing his hands together like a cartoon villain dreaming of world domination. Popcorn in hand, as Cyrus stirred unrest, the atmosphere shifted like storm clouds gathering over the horizon. It was as if a dark tide washed over the sandy beaches where laughter once echoed, replaced by murmurs of fear and doubt. The elders recalled the tales spun by the shell, legends steeped in the ocean's magic, a bond that ran deep, like roots of an ancient banyan tree. But Cyrus saw none of that. To him, the shell was merely a vault, ripe for cracking. How ironic it was, really, that in his pursuit of power, he risked severing the very connection that had nourished the villagers through generations, like trying to sever the umbilical cord, only to find it wrapped around his neck. The villagers huddled together, faces illuminated by the evening sun, twinkling like stars in their eyes as they devised a plan to protect their cherished legacy. They approached the beach with purpose, the scent of salt and seaweed thick in the air, their hearts racing in harmonious beat with the rhythmic waves. With every tale shared, the shell glowed brighter, like a mystical beacon calling them to safeguard their heritage. The unity forged among them shimmered like freshly polished treasure, ready to fight for their stories against the tyranny of trade. They knew deep down that while wealth might fill pockets, the riches of their history would fill their souls, making Cyrus's loot feel about as substantial as a handful of sand slipping through fingers. As night fell, the battle lines were drawn, not with swords, but with a vibrant tapestry of laughter and ancestral pride. In the face of Cyrus's greed, the villagers stood firm, their spirits entwined like the tides of the ocean. They saw the merit in sharing their past, in celebrating the very thing Cyrus sought to monopolize. Like the Avengers assembling for one last showdown, they rose to protect what made them whole. And so, under a canopy of twinkling stars, the villagers vowed to safeguard the shell and the legacy it held. For it was not just a trinket of the sea, but a cornerstone of who they were, rich beyond measure, even without a single coin to their name. As dawn broke over the serene shores of time, Alara stood at the edge of the soft, sun-kissed sands, her heart beating like a drum at a festival. The ocean shimmered with all the hues of the dawn, a deceptive blanket of turquoise that whispered secrets as it lapped against the shore. Next to her was Myra, a girl with mud-streaked cheeks and a spirit brighter than a shooting star. Together, they eyed the swirling waters, contemplating the perilous journey ahead. Little did they know, they were about to dive headfirst into an adventure that had more twists than an octopus with a cramp. With a shared nod of determination, they set their sights on the horizon, where tales of waves and whispers awaited them. hidden beneath the surface, like treasure waiting to be discovered. The moment they cast off, a salty breeze tousled their hair, bringing with it the scent of adventure and maybe a hint of seaweed, but let's not dwell on that. Alara gripped the boat's helm, feeling the vessel dance under her command, while Myra, with her eyes sparkling like the ocean itself, kept a lookout for any lurking danger. And oh, how danger had a knack for popping up uninvited. The water rippled ominously around them, each wave a reminder that Cyrus, the villain with a grin as crooked as a weathered barn, had been prowling the shores like a hungry seagull, eyeing a forgotten sandwich. Their first encounter came sooner than expected. Spouting from the depths emerged a creature more magnificent than a pop diva in sequins. It was Lumina, the ancient mermaid, her scales shimmering like the disco ball of 80s night at a high school dance. "You two are on a fool's errand," she sang, her voice echoing like a siren's. "Cyrus intends to steal the shell's power for his own greedy ambitions." The rhythm of her song seemed to pull at the waves even more, curling and cresting, match the urgency in Alara's heart. With a flick of her iridescent tail, Lumina shared a piece of wisdom wrapped in the saltiness of ocean adventures. Guardians of heritage, you must be resolute. As they sailed deeper into the mystery, the ocean turned from vibrant azure to a ghostly shade, cloaked in fog thicker than a college kid's bag of ramen noodles. Shadows danced below the surface, teasing the dew with glimpses of scales, fins, and the occasional unimpressed crab that seemed to judge their every move. Myra, undeterred, leaned over the edge. Her curiosity sparkled like the stars they'd seen on that fateful night beneath the open sky. Suddenly, a chorus of whispers erupted from the depths, warning them of dark currents and treacherous traps set by Cyrus. The sea wasn't just a playground. It held legacies beneath its waves, and with every stroke of their oars, they felt the weight of history pressing down like an unyielding tide. Just when hope seemed as elusive as a mirage in the desert, Alara and Myra felt a swell within them, a fierce will to uncover the truth that lay shackled within the shell. With their hearts synchronized like a well-rehearsed duet, they pushed onward, fueled by courage and a splash of youthful audacity. The warning of the mermaid echoed in their minds like a catchy chorus that refused to fade, reminding them that every heritage has its custodians, and they were meant to be the shields against Cyrus's treachery. As the mist parted, revealing a distant isle veiled in ethereal light, they could almost taste victory, along with the remnants of fear and adventure swirling in the salty air. Together, they were not just chasing whispers, they were forging their own legend against the tempest that brewed within and around them. On the vibrant sands of the coastal village, A ripple of unease coursed through the crowd gathered for the seasonal festival. Laughter echoed like the rhythmic crash of waves, but the atmosphere was charged with tension, palpable as a thunderstorm on the horizon. Cyrus, the imposing figure cloaked in shadows, marched forward, flanked by his mercenaries, as though he were leading a battalion on the front lines of some grand misadventure. Their armor clinked ominously, and the villagers, once buoyed by mirth, now felt the prickling chill of fear on their arms, like the whisper of sea foam licking at their bare toes. The air was thick with salt and suspicion. As Alara and Myra stepped into the circle, their hearts racing like gulls circling before a storm, ready to defend the shining shell that had become both a treasure and a target. With a voice as clear as the bell tolling for last orders at a pub, Alara faced her adversaries, the brilliant sunlight glinting off her fiery hair. "This shell is not merely ornamental," she declared, her eyes ablaze with fervor like a heroine from tales of yore. She continued, revealing its ancient power, a force capable of unleashing either chaos or harmony, depending solely upon the purity of the heart wielding it. The air around them crackled like a sparkler on the 4th of July, drawing familiar gasps and whispers from the crowd, who strained to hear her next words amidst the heavy scent of grilled fish wafting under the canvas tents. As she spoke, the shell shimmered in her hands, catching sunbeams and scattering them like glitter on the tranquil waters, thus intensifying the villagers' hope. But Cyrus, with a sneer that could curdle cream, scoffed at Alara's impassioned declaration, believing only in the might of muscle and money. With each step forward, his band of mercenaries mirrored his intent, their faces twisted in contempt like gnarled driftwood washed ashore. The villagers huddled together, their serenity eroded like sandcastles in the tide, whispers igniting among them like wind-borne embers. Just then, Myra, with her quiet strength, raised her voice, reminding them of the legends passed down through generations, tales of their ancestors who stood united before adversities. The essence of their history resonated deeper than the deepest ocean, rallying courage and igniting a collective resolve that could illuminate the darkest night. As if galvanized by an ancient magic, the villagers surged forward, a tapestry of determined faces blazing together against the tide of Cyrus's threats. Cries of solidarity mingled with the cries of gulls overhead, creating an anthem that swept through the sands, crackling with electricity. With laughter and shouts that punctuated the tension, they brought forth their treasures, memories of past celebrations, bonds of kinship woven stronger than any sword or coin. Cyrus, banking on intimidation, swiftly discovered that the strength of hearts united was a force mightier than any mercenary's blade. It was chaos and order entwined, a dance of defiance echoing like a cherished song on repeat, resonating through the very grains of sand beneath their feet. And so, under that stormy sky, with thunder rumbling ominously in the background, the battle unfolded, a chaotic choreography of humanity versus greed. Alara stood her ground, the shell shimmering like a beacon amidst the fray, clasped tight against the pounding of her heart. Each clash of wills echoed through the village, intertwining like interlaced fingers, creating a tapestry of resilience that even the fiercest storm could not wash away. The sense of salt and sweat mixed with the rich aroma of food, and the symphony of sounds reflected the struggle of their hearts. In that moment, Alara understood the true power of the shell lay not in its magic, but in the fiercely beating hearts of those gathered around her, fighting not just for a shell, but for the very soul of their community. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the cerulean waves that lapped gently against the shore of Mythos. As the villagers gathered, the salty breeze carried the scent of seaweed and sun-kissed sand, mingling with the murmurs of anticipation. Alara and Myra stood shoulder to shoulder, their hearts racing with the harmony that the moment promised. Today, they would bid farewell to the shell, no ordinary shell, but a vessel of secrets and tales that had stirred their quiet lives into a tempest. Little did they know, this wasn't just a shell. It was their very own version of the One Ring, minus the weirdly aggressive little hobbits, of course. The villagers formed a semicircle, sand crunching underfoot, their faces a mix of solemnity and hope. As the shell was lifted from its resting place, a hush enveloped the crowd, akin to the quiet just before a dramatic plot twist. The familiar salty air grew thick with an otherworldly hum, as if the shell was trumpeting its own departure like a diva at a farewell concert. Alara caught herself holding her breath, a strange sensation bubbling in her chest. Perhaps it was the thrill of being in the presence of something truly magical, or just too much fish stew for breakfast. But despite the uncertainty, a trance-like calm descended, promising peace after the storm of conflict. With each step toward the shimmering water, the villagers felt the weight of generations upon their shoulders. They were not just returning a shell, they were reclaiming their unity, a rainbow of their colorful past, shimmering together against the backdrop of an azure sky. The shell glimmered, reflecting the world around it, like a disco ball at a prom night from a decade past. And as Alara knelt at the water's edge, she could almost hear it whispering the tales of laughter, tears, and tiny squabbles over the best fishing spots, a sort of cosmic Netflix show, but without the binge-watching guilt. With a deep breath, Alara let go of the shell, and as it sank beneath the glistening surface, a cascade of golden light erupted, dancing like fireflies on a balmy summer evening. Laughter mingled with the gentle roar of the ocean, echoing the joy of a community reborn, as vibrant as a fresh coat of paint on a once dusty canvas. Myra stood beside her, arms wide open, almost convincing the waves to embrace her. There was a mischievous twinkle in her eye, as if to say, "Look, we can stir up a little magic without calamities popping out of nowhere, right?" Everyone chuckled, acknowledging the rarity of the moment, a fleeting sense of victory against their own chaotic history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers stood intertwined like the roots of their beloved ancient trees, their spirits lifting in unison. The whispers of the shell, now part of the sea, promised to guide future generations as navigators of their shared story, steering clear of jagged rocks and unknown shores. They learned that harmony was more than a mere absence of discord. It was a symphony of voices, a beautiful off-key karaoke tune that somehow still worked. And as they turned away from the water, their laughter mingling with the calls of distant seagulls, Alara felt a surge of hope ripple through her. The beach, once a backdrop to their struggles, now shimmered with the endless possibilities of a brighter tomorrow, like the ending of a great film, where you just know everything will turn out hilariously all right. In the heart of the sprawling meadowlands, young Alara stumbled upon a kaleidoscope of colors that danced beneath the nourishing sun. The meadows, a veritable patchwork quilt of wildflowers, invited her with their sweet, sun-kissed scent, a perfume created by nature herself, not some overpriced bottle from a hipster shop. As a botanist with an insatiable curiosity, she felt like a kid in a candy store. But instead of gummy bears and lollipops, she was surrounded by blooming daisies, shy violets, and assertive dandelions, all whispering secrets to each other in the gentle breeze. This was no ordinary adventure. It felt as if the grass was alive, gently nudging her to explore deeper. Banding together in this vast expanse, the earth seemed absolutely determined to share its most colorful tales, and Alara was ready to listen, armed with her trusty notebook and an unshakable sense of wonder. As she set up her makeshift camp, an eclectic collection of gear that could best be described as a botanist's version of a survivalist's wish list, Alara could almost hear the meadows giggle in delight. The soft rustling of the grasses cradled her like a gentle lullaby, only interrupted by the occasional squawking of an overzealous bird who seemed to think he was auditioning for a solo in a nature documentary. The serene backdrop was occasionally laced with the earthy tang of damp soil and the intoxicating sweetness of blooming honeysuckle. reminding her that there was beauty in every nook and cranny, even in the scraggly weeds that dared to poke up defiantly around her tent. With each evening's gentle sweep of dusk, the chilling temperatures pulled her closer to the warmth of her campfire, turning what could have been a grueling camping trip into an enchanting rendezvous with nature's hidden gems. But it wasn't just the flora that piqued Ilara's interest. Something else stirred within the meadow, almost as if the land itself was draped with a light, magical veil. She felt a tickle at the back of her neck, a curious sensation, as if invisible fingers beckoned her to dive further into the enchanting heart of the meadows. Perhaps she had fallen under the spell of the local fairies, or maybe those late-night camping snacks had finally taken their toll. Regardless of the cause, she noticed beams of light haloing around clusters of dripping lavender and shimmering ferns, as if paparazzi had found their way into this botanical paradise. The array of colors and flitting shadows seemed to whisper ancient stories, blending the ordinary with the extraordinary, and Ilara was determined to uncover every hidden secret, however elusive they may be. Driven by electric excitement, Ilara embarked on her quest, armed with her magnifying glass and a sarcasm-tinged sense of humor. After all, what was a botanist if not part scientist, part detective? She kneeled low, inspecting a curious flower with petals resembling tiny umbrellas, laughter bubbling up as she imagined them shielding medieval insects during rainstorms. Any entomologist worth their salt would have surely provided a dissertation on the mating rituals of hoverflies. But Ilara was here for the whimsical charm of it, all the joy of unearthing nature's quirky oddities. She found herself immersed in a rhythm not unlike a treasure hunt, but with stinky plants and insults hurled by startled frogs instead of pirates and gold doubloons. Every discovery seemed to challenge her perception of nature, opening her eyes to a world where magic thrummed along with the heartbeat of the land, making her feel both incredibly small and entirely grand all at once. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and magenta, worthy of an Instagram filter, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that the meadows had pulled her into an alternate dimension, a place rich with stories waiting to be told. So many tales were whispered through the winds, teasing her to delve deeper into the unknown. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Ilara knew she was only scratching the surface of this magical tapestry, woven with vibrant flora, endearing critters, and the soft caress of the evening breeze. Those meadows weren't just patches of grass and blooms. They were living narratives, untouched legacies, intertwining with her own story, knitting together a connection both profound and inexplicable. And as she jotted down her findings with a flourish that rivaled an author penning their next bestseller. She embraced the thrilling uncertainty of the adventures yet to unfold, fueled by the whisper of the meadows that promised so much more. As Alara ventured further into the heart of the Meadowlands, the sun's warmth bathed her in a golden hue, but the air grew thick with the thrill of mystery. A gentle breeze rustled the wildflowers, coaxing forth a symphony of whispers that danced around her like cheeky spirits trying to spill their secrets. "Did you hear that?" she pondered, shushing the quirky thoughts that crept in like uninvited guests at a dinner party. The familiar sense of fresh grass and blooming daisies filled her lungs, yet something deeper stirred, tugging her thoughts toward the realm of the unreal. It was as if the very land, with its vivid hues, was alive, beckoning her with a wink from the realism of science into the enchanting realm of the mystical. Where were the 21st century equations now, perhaps tossed aside by the roots of the very meadow beneath her feet, alive with enchanting wonders and unseen connections? In her awestruck exploration, visions flashed before her eyes, towering figures of ancient guardians intertwined with petals and stems, their faces beaming wisdom through the vibrant colors of the blossoms. She rubbed her eyes, half expecting her contacts to produce yet another optical illusion, like seeing Elvis at a gas station. But these ethereal beings didn't hum classic rock tunes. Instead, they seemed to whisper sacred knowledge about the land's history, echoing tales of ages past where humans and nature intertwined in miraculous ways. The petals shimmered as if echoing laughter from forgotten times, and Alara couldn't help but feel the ancient energy pressing upon her soul, urging her to listen closely. Perhaps there were truths here that even her well-thumbed textbook could not explain. Would she write a paper on glimpses of the forest theater, or frustration over her own limited understanding? The irony was rich, and the meadows offered an all-you-can-eat buffet of enlightenment. And then, as if summoned by her thoughts, a shadow flitted past, a creature so splendidly elusive that it felt like catching a glimpse of a unicorn on a Monday morning. Nara, the guardian of the meadows, materialized among the flowers, her form ethereal and shimmering, like a crazy CGI effect gone right, while the world panicked in pixelated chaos. Alara's heart raced, pausing between scientific inquiry and sheer wonder, prompting visions of glittering children's books on the shelves of her childhood. This wasn't just a bedtime story figure. Nara held the essence of a world untouched by the relentless tick of time, where nature cradled its secrets close in the tender blossoms of daisies and poppies. With every glance, Nara seemed to weave an invisible thread between Alara's practical mind and her yearning heart, drawing her closer to the heart of the earth's magic. If magic shrugged on some overalls and picked up a rake, yet as Alara delved deeper into this enchanting embrace, a dark presence slithered through the air, discordant with the meadow's tranquility. Like a rogue note in a perfect symphony, dark clouds loomed overhead, heavy and ominous, casting long shadows that whispered of impending trouble. The hum of the peaceful meadows shifted to an anxious buzz, as if nature were holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable downpour of chaos. Would she find the strength to protect this whimsical haven, or would the shadowy hand of despair sweep through, chasing away the laughter of the wildflowers? In that moment, amidst the looming darkness, Alara realized urgency mingled with her newfound wonder. Could she bridge the lingering gap between science and spirit before the storm broke loose, with resolve settling like warm butter on fresh bread? Alara prepared to face this tempest of reality and myth, armed with a purpose that shone brighter than the brightest star on her twinkling night charts. She had stumbled into a world where the whispers of the past mingled freely with the present, shaping the rich tapestry of life's intricacies. Each step in the Meadowland brought a new surge of determination, the promise of protecting the magical essence around her, an essence disrupted by darkening clouds that seemed to carry warnings from ages past. As the wind picked up, mixed with the scent of impending rain, Alara called upon the ancient spirits she encountered, ready to align science and magic in a battle against the storm. Because who wouldn't want to have a Freaky Friday where they teamed up with mythical guardians to save the day? In her heart, she felt the thrill of adventure, a blend of mystery and color awakening her senses, inviting her to reclaim not just the land, but her place in its grand story. As thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, Alara stood at the edge of the Meadowlands, her heart heavy with a sense of impending doom. The once vibrant hues of wildflowers danced nervously in the gusting winds, like no-hopers at the finals of a pie-eating contest. Everyone knew the inevitable disaster that was about to unfold. The scent of damp earth filled the air, mingling uncomfortably with the tang of fear. A storm was brewing, not just in the sky above, but in the machinations of some slick-talking developers, eager to turn this paradise into a soulless parking lot. Oh, how she wished she could simply curse them into oblivion, if only it were that simple. But instead, a battle loomed, one that required a different kind of courage, and possibly a clever battle cry for the ages, perhaps something like, "Not today, asphalt overlords." Nara, her fierce friend with determination bubbling like a well-made soda, joined Alara, her eyes sparkling with that indomitable spirit that fueled their quest. Together, under the gathering clouds, they plotted their course of action, gathering the local villagers like seasoned storm chasers for a relentless leagues of nature. The villagers were a motley crew of seasoned farmers, artful craftspeople, and the occasional swaggering quilter who could wield a needle like a warrior with a sword. These were the people who understood the rhythm of the land. Its heartbeat could be heard in the rustling leaves and the babbling brooks. And oh, they were not about to let a bunch of suit-clad paper pushers spoil their paradise. The scent of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, infusing the moment with hope and the promise of warmth, both inside and out. Amidst the chaos and hammering rain, Alara's fervor transformed into a blazing wildfire, fueled by the laughter and camaraderie of her makeshift army. Together, they painted signs in bright colors, each one resounding with messages that echoed the heart of the meadows. Save our home. And nature isn't for sale. You'd think they were rehearsing for a Broadway show dedicated to eco-justice. The pitter-patter of raindrops against the earthy ground became the music to their cause, a symphony of protest, fueled by the passion of the land's guardians. There was a fleeting moment of levity as Nara held a sign with her muddy hand, accidentally flinging splashes of brown on Alara's shirt, resembling questionable impressionist art. But laughter was that little glimmer of sunshine piercing through the threatening skies, empowering their spirits to keep fighting the good fight. As the storm brewed overhead, threatening to unleash its fury, Alara felt an undeniable resolve swell within her chest, a tangible fire that no tempest could dim. The meadows were not just land. They were memories, roots, and laughter that echoed through generations. It was a battle not just for survival, but for identity. Everyone in the village breathed history. From the sun-drenched fields to the whispers of the wind, she glanced at the sky, feeling the first droplets land like blessings on her face, invigorating and invigorating. No matter how heavy the storm clouds grew, Alara and her band of unlikely heroes were prepared to face the tempest, fighting fiercely to preserve the fragile beauty of their beloved meadowlands, a legacy they would protect at all costs, wielding their hopes like shields against the devastation ahead. As the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting streaks of molten gold across the lush meadowlands, Alara stood firm, arms outstretched like a conductor preparing for the grandest symphony. Her heart raced with the pulse of the earth beneath her, and she felt the spirits awaken, fluttering like fireflies just out of reach. "Hear me, guardians of this sacred land," she cried, her voice rising above the whispers of the trees, sending shivers through the grass that seemed to nod in agreement. It was a moment reminiscent of epic showdowns, like that scene in The Avengers when the heroes assemble to save the day. But instead of hulking men in colorful spandex. Alara had the very essence of the Meadowland at her fingertips. The air crackled with ancient magic, thick like warm honey, and buzzing with the anticipation of an impending storm. As the greedy developers encroached deeper, their heavy machinery belching fumes that clashed with the pure scents of wildflowers and earth. Nara, ever the faithful companion, darted beside Alara, her mischievous smile a sharp contrast to the seriousness of the moment, like a cat among rats. Or maybe that was just the frantic squirrels skittering about in agitation. This is not exactly what I had in mind for our summer getaway, Alara, she quipped, glancing over her shoulder at the monstrous machines whining like petulant children denied their toys. But Alara simply smiled, feeling the tug of the spirits beckoning her. With a powerful chant, she summoned forth a gust of wind so strong that it nearly toppled the nearby trees, their leaves swirling in a chaotic dance that mirrored Nara's impish energy. Together, they unleashed a chorus of nature's wonders. Wildflowers erupted from the earth, filling the air with heady fragrances, as though the meadow itself was getting ready for a garden party. And who knew, maybe the spirits were just a tad more generous with the floral arrangements when humans were in peril. As the storm surged, nature and greed clashed like titans. The skies darkened, pregnant with heavy clouds that rumbled ominously, resembling a dragon's growl ready to unleash its fiery wrath. Raindrops began to plummet, hammering on the hard ground, turning the air thick with the scent of petrichor, a delight for the senses that only heightened the stakes of this showdown. Streams of lightning flashed like a disco light show gone rogue, illuminating the epic battleground where Alara, Nara, and the villagers stood arm in arm, defiant against the encroaching doom. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a brilliant display of resistance, echoing the age-old tales of heroes battling for their homeland while the world seemed to hold its breath, caught up in the unfolding drama. And whilst the developers looked on, slack-jawed and wide-eyed, full of confusion at the sheer unpredictability of nature, Alara could hardly stifle a chuckle. Wasn't it ironic that bureaucracy had underestimated the magic woven into the very ground they sought to conquer? The developers, with their suits and cocky attitudes, seemed frozen in place, their bravado reduced to fear as the meadow burst alive with a ferocity they had never anticipated. Thorns sprouted quickly, wrapping around their machinery like nature's barbed wire defense, muting the menacing roars of engines with the soft, yet fierce, rustling of leaves. Yet amidst the chaos, a quaint sense of hilarity bloomed. Who would have thought the mighty forest could serve as its own form of environmental regulation? The villagers cheered, their spirits buoyed by the raw, otherworldly magic flooding their senses, their laughter mingling with the thunder's applause. Alara felt her courage swell, fueled by the strength of those so willing to fight. A tug of nostalgia washing over her like summer rain. She felt like those heroes of old who stood firm against a tide of darkness, albeit with a lot less spandex and a lot more eco-friendly pizzazz. Just when it seemed the storm might consume everything, a glorious rainbow unfurled across the sky, its colors vibrant and defiant, a banner of victory waving gently above their heads. The developers, realizing their power was no match for the wild spirit of the land, retreated, leaving behind their machines like broken toys in a child's room, forsaking their conquest. The villagers burst into jubilant song, laughter bubbling up in a joyous testament to their unity. A potpourri of emotions blending like the wildflowers they'd fought to protect. Alara's heart swelled as she turned to Nara, who was spinning in circles, arms wide open to embrace the atmosphere like a character from The Sound of Music. In that moment, everyone understood. They weren't just fighting for the meadow. They were guardians of a sanctuary that thrummed with life, safeguarded by the laughter of friends, the courage of the brave, and the gentle embrace of breezes that whispered of home and hope. As dawn pulled back the curtain of night, Alara stood at the edge of the meadowlands, where the once menacing storm clouds had retreated, leaving behind a sky tangled in the soft colors of dawn. With each breath, she inhaled the fresh scent of dew-kissed grass and wildflowers, where the air felt alive with the whispers of nature awakening from a storm. The meadows, once a battlefield of turmoil, now shimmered with the promise of renewal. Butterflies flitted about like tiny living jewels, and the lingering aroma of rain hung like a freshly laundered sheet, cheerful and bright. It was in this moment, amidst the vibrant greens and the soft hum of the awakening creatures, that Alara realized the true power of their victory. The meadows were not merely defeated, they were reborn with her allies, a ragtag collection of believers in the magic of the meadows by her side. Alara threw herself into the joyous task of restoring the land. They scooted about with shovels and watering cans, like an overly enthusiastic gardening club on a caffeine high. Each day was a kaleidoscope of laughter and dirt, as they cultivated not just the dirt, but their bond with nature. They planted rare medicinal herbs, each with a story as rich as a hearty stew. One smell could conjure images of ancient healers, while another sent them on a journey to a faraway time when pixies were considered the best option for pest control. The forest echoed with their giggles, where heroism blended seamlessly with the absurdity of everyday life, like an enchanted sitcom set among the emerald blades. Walking through the lush meadowlands was like stepping into a vibrant painting, and Alara made it her mission to nurture every inch of it. She discovered the art of silent communication with the flora and fauna, resembling some sort of nature-whispering superhero. The trees spoke in creaks and groans, while the flowers unfurled like banners of rebellion, and even the squirrels shared tales of their escapades with cheeky chittering. In moments of stillness, she could feel the rhythmic heartbeat of the earth beneath her feet, a grounding reminder that they were not just fighting for survival, but celebrating life itself. Occasionally, a particularly persistent bee would hover too close for comfort, prompting Alara to dodge comically, reminiscent of an awkward dance scene in a rom-com, Nature's version of an unexpected love story. In her newfound role as the guardian of these meadows, Alara realized that she bore the responsibility not just of protection, but of education. It was imperative to share the enchanting tales of their homeland with the villagers, who had long abandoned the charms of nature for the mundane routines of everyday life, binge-watching the latest series and scrolling endlessly on their devices. Gathering the children around a gigantic oak, reminiscent of an ancient storyteller with its gnarled bark and wide-reaching branches, she spun tales that made even the most skeptical eyes light up like stars during a meteor shower. As she spoke of fireflies that could light up dreams and plants that could heal broken hearts, she watched as their imaginations took flight. Mothers sighed, realizing their children might actually learn something worthwhile outside of the internet. And so, as the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the diminishing shadows, Alara pledged to uncover the last remnants of nature's secrets, sharing them with anyone willing to listen. She often laughed, half seriously, that if she had her way, she'd rewrite the local history books to reflect their newfound reverence for nature, complete with footnotes on the epic squirrel battles and debate club meetings, which the badgers were, apparently, quite passionate about. In a world that often rushed past the beauty of creation, Alara became a living testament to the wonders nestled within the lush meadowlands. Each day felt like a delightful encore in a concert of endless symphonies, maintaining the fragile balance of nature and nurture. With spirits high and laughter as their anthem, they stepped boldly into the dawn of renewal, a journey not just of preservation, but of rekindling the love for the wild in every human heart.